Hi, I am Dr. Jocelyn. I'm about to show you the one meal that actually reverses arterial plaque. Not slows it down, not manages it, reverses it, and I can prove it. For over 2 decades, I've spent my life looking directly at diseased arteries. I've held calcified vessels in my hands. I've seen plaque turn living blood vessels into rigid concrete pipes. I've watched people who thought they were doing everything right end up on an operating table. And I'm telling you something most people have never been told. Everything you've heard about unclogging your arteries is wrong. The internet is full of nonsense. Lemon water to dissolve plaque, apple cider vinegar to clean your arteries, garlic supplements to melt cholesterol. It all sounds comforting, it all sounds simple, and it's all garbage. Your arteries are not kitchen pipes. Plaque is not grease stuck to the walls. You can't pour something down your throat and clear them out. That's not how the human body works. I know this because I've seen what actually happens inside diseased arteries. When a chest is opened for bypass surgery and a coronary artery is cut that's 90% blocked, what you see isn't grease. You see biology, you see inflammation, you see immune cells, you see a living, violent process. Plaque is not cholesterol stuck to a wall. Plaque is an immune response. It's inflammation. It's your white blood cells attacking oxidized cholesterol trapped inside the vessel wall. It's an autoimmune war happening inside your arteries right now. And if you want to reverse it, you have to understand that mechanism. Once you understand what plaque really is, how it forms, why it grows, you'll realize the meal I'm about to describe isn't some health food fantasy. It's a targeted intervention. Every ingredient activates a specific pathway. Every compound triggers a specific cellular response. This meal doesn't clean your arteries. It activates reverse cholesterol transport. It forces immune cells to spit out the cholesterol they've swallowed. It prevents calcium from turning your vessels into bone. It stops LDL from oxidizing in the first place. This is cellular biology. This is immunology. This is how plaque is actually reversed. Not with a cleanse, not with a detox, with science. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand what's happening inside your arteries right now. You'll understand why standard advice fails, why low-fat diets make things worse, why pills alone aren't enough, and you'll know the exact meal, the exact ingredients, the exact compounds that activate the pathways your body already has to pull cholesterol out of your artery walls. This is not theory. This is peer-reviewed science, and it works. But first, you need to understand what plaque actually is. Your artery wall has 3 layers. The innermost layer is a single sheet of endothelial cells. These cells form a barrier between your blood and the deeper layers of the vessel. When they're healthy, they're smooth and slippery. They release nitric oxide, a gas that keeps vessels relaxed and prevents blood cells from sticking. But when those cells are damaged by high blood pressure, smoking, diabetes, or chronic inflammation, they become dysfunctional. They stop producing nitric oxide. They become sticky. They develop tiny gaps. Through those gaps, LDL cholesterol particles slip into the vessel wall. That is the first step in plaque formation. If that LDL just sat there, it wouldn't be a problem. But it doesn't. It oxidizes. Think of it like rust. Free radicals damage the fats and proteins inside the LDL particle. It becomes oxidized LDL. And oxidized LDL is seen by your immune system as an invader. Your body sends white blood cells into the vessel wall. They transform into scavenger cells whose job is to eat dangerous material. They engulf the oxidized LDL. They fill up with fat. They swell. They become foam cells. Those foam cells are the foundation of plaque. And they're trapped. They can't leave. They can't get rid of what they've eaten. They sit there, bloated, inflamed, and dying. When they rupture, they spill their contents into the artery wall. More inflammation, more immune cells, more foam cells. The plaque grows, slowly, silently, for years. And this is why heart attacks and strokes don't come out of nowhere. They are the final moment of a process that's been building inside you for decades. In the next part, I'll show you why plaque doesn't kill by blocking arteries, why even small plaques can be deadly, and why the medical system focuses on the wrong target. Here's what most people never understand. Plaque doesn't usually kill you by slowly closing an artery until no blood can pass. That almost never happens. The real danger is rupture. Plaque is not a solid lump. It's a living, inflamed lesion. Inside it is a soft core made of dead foam cells, cholesterol crystals, and inflammatory debris. Covering that core is a thin, fibrous cap. That cap is fragile, and when it breaks, everything inside spills into the bloodstream. Your blood sees that spill as a massive injury. A clot forms instantly. If that clot blocks a coronary artery, you have a heart attack. If it blocks an artery in the brain, you have a stroke. If it blocks blood flow to a leg, tissue dies. This is how plaque kills. Not by slowly choking off blood, but by rupturing suddenly. And here's what's terrifying. The plaques that rupture are not always the biggest ones. Sometimes it's a plaque that only narrows the artery 40 or 50%. A plaque that wouldn't even cause symptoms. A plaque no one is watching. That plaque ruptures, a clot forms, and life ends in minutes. It's not the size that matters. It's how inflamed the plaque is. How many foam cells are dying inside it. How thin and fragile the cap has become. This is why the standard approach fails. The medical system focuses on narrowing. Stress tests, scans, angiograms. If an artery is blocked more than 70%, it gets opened. A stent is placed, blood flow improves, symptoms disappear, and everyone celebrates. But the disease is still there. The plaque remains inflamed. The biology hasn't changed, and the dozens of smaller plaques that weren't bad enough to treat are still sitting there, growing, destabilizing, waiting. Those are the ones that kill. We don't need to widen arteries. We need to change the biology inside them. We need to stabilize plaque. Better yet, we need to reverse it. That means pulling cholesterol out of foam cells, out of the vessel wall, back into the bloodstream, back to the liver, out of the body. Your body already has a system for this. It's called reverse cholesterol transport. You've heard of HDL, the so-called good cholesterol. HDL isn't good because it's a different type of fat. It's good because it's a vehicle. Its job is to collect cholesterol from tissues and carry it back to the liver. When HDL encounters a foam cell, it docks on the surface and activates a transporter inside that cell. That transporter acts like an eject button. It pumps cholesterol out of the foam cell and loads it onto the HDL particle. HDL carries that cholesterol away. The liver excretes it into bile. It leaves your body. The foam cell shrinks. The plaque regresses. That is the only way plaque is actually reversed. But in most people, this system is broken. The transporter isn't activated. HDL is dysfunctional. Foam cells can't eject what they've eaten. So plaque just keeps growing until it ruptures or until someone ends up on an operating table. It doesn't have to be this way. These pathways can be turned back on. Not with surgery, not with procedures, not even primarily with medication. With food, specific compounds activate these transporters. Specific nutrients restore HDL function. Specific foods calm inflammation, prevent oxidation, and stop calcium from turning arteries into bone. This is what the meal does. But before we get there, you need to understand another enemy inside your arteries. Calcium. As plaque matures and foam cells die, the body tries to wall off the inflammation. It lays down calcium like scar tissue. Over time, that plaque hardens. Your arteries begin to behave like bone. They lose flexibility. They can't dilate. Blood flow suffers. Rupture risk rises. This is what a calcium score measures. It doesn't just show plaque. It shows how far your arteries have drifted from living tissue toward concrete. High calcium means active disease, and most people are never taught how to stop it. In the next part, I'll show you why standard advice often accelerates this process, why low-fat thinking makes arteries more fragile, and how one simple dietary shift begins to reverse the biology itself. For decades, people were told that fat was the enemy. Eat less fat, choose low fat, avoid eggs, avoid butter, avoid anything that looks rich or satisfying. Replace it with bread, cereal, juice, crackers, pasta, and heart-healthy grains. That advice did not save lives. It quietly built the perfect environment for arterial disease. When you replace fat with refined carbohydrates, you change your blood chemistry in a dangerous way. Blood sugar rises, insulin spikes, triglycerides increase, small, dense LDL particles flood your bloodstream. These particles are far more likely to slip through damaged vessel walls. They oxidize easily. They trigger immune attacks. This is plaque fuel. At the same time, low-fat diets strip away the raw materials your body needs to build protective systems. Your cells need fat to create membranes. Your liver needs fat to produce functional HDL. Your endothelium needs fat-soluble nutrients to stay resilient. Without them, your artery walls become fragile. So the very diet meant to protect your heart weakens the barrier that keeps cholesterol out of your vessel walls. More LDL slips in. More oxidation occurs. More foam cells form. More inflammation builds. And all of this happens while blood tests may look fine. Total cholesterol might be normal. LDL might not be alarming. But inside the artery wall, the process is accelerating. This is why people who follow every rule still end up with heart attacks. They were targeting the wrong enemy. The enemy is not fat. The enemy is oxidation. The enemy is inflammation. The enemy is endothelial damage. The enemy is metabolic chaos. And this is where the right food becomes medicine. Your arteries are lined with endothelial cells that constantly sense what's in your blood. Every meal changes their behavior. Some foods tell them to tighten, inflame, and leak. Other foods tell them to relax, repair, and protect. When endothelial cells are healthy, they release nitric oxide. This gas keeps vessels flexible. It prevents platelets from sticking. It reduces inflammation. It is one of your strongest natural defenses against plaque. But nitric oxide production collapses when blood sugar spikes, when oxidative stress is high, and when key nutrients are missing. You cannot supplement your way out of that. You have to feed the system correctly. There are plant compounds that directly stimulate nitric oxide production. There are fats that rebuild endothelial membranes. There are antioxidants that prevent LDL from oxidizing in the first place. There are minerals that guide calcium back into bone and out of arteries. When these elements arrive together in the right form, they don't just support heart health. They change gene expression inside your vessels. They activate the transporters that let foam cells release cholesterol. They calm the immune storm inside plaque. They thicken the fibrous cap. They make rupture less likely. This is why isolated supplements fail. A capsule of vitamin C does not behave like vitamin C inside a living food matrix. A pill of omega-3 does not recreate the signaling cascade that happens when fats, polyphenols, fiber, and minerals arrive together. Biology responds to patterns, not fragments. The meal I'm about to describe works because it recreates the environment your arteries evolved to recognize as safe. It lowers post-meal glucose. It prevents LDL oxidation. It restores endothelial function. It reactivates reverse cholesterol transport. And it does this without forcing your body. It doesn't shock the system. It doesn't stress the liver. It doesn't rely on deprivation. It gives your cells the information they've been missing. Most people think plaque is permanent, that once it forms, it can only be managed. That is not true. Plaque is living tissue. It responds to signals. It grows under one set of conditions and regresses under another. You are creating those conditions 3 times a day. In the next part, I'll walk you through the exact meal, not a diet, not a program, one plate, one pattern, and I'll explain what each element does inside your arteries so you understand why it works rather than just hoping it does. This is where everything becomes practical. The meal is simple, almost disappointingly simple. There's no powder, no cleanse, no exotic ingredient flown in from across the world. It's a plate built from foods your body already understands. It begins with a base of dark leafy greens, spinach, arugula, kale, or mixed greens. These are not decoration, they are biochemical tools. These leaves are rich in natural nitrates that your body converts into nitric oxide. That single molecule restores flexibility to your arteries, lowers pressure inside vessel walls, and reduces the microscopic damage that lets LDL slip through. On top of that base comes a generous portion of colorful vegetables: red peppers, tomatoes, purple cabbage, carrots, beets. Their color comes from polyphenols. These compounds neutralize free radicals before they can oxidize LDL. No oxidation means no immune attack. No immune attack means fewer foam cells. Fewer foam cells mean less plaque. Then comes healthy fat, not a drizzle, not a fear-based teaspoon, real fat. Extra virgin olive oil, a handful of walnuts, slices of avocado, fatty fish like sardines or salmon. These fats rebuild endothelial membranes. They make HDL functional. They activate the transporters that let foam cells release cholesterol. They shift your blood from a pro-inflammatory state into a repair state. Without fat, reverse cholesterol transport stalls. With the right fat, it accelerates. Next is fiber, not a supplement, not a bar. Whole fiber from beans, lentils, chickpeas, or intact grains. Fibrable fiber binds bile in the intestine. Bile is made from cholesterol. When it's carried out of the body instead of recycled, the liver must pull cholesterol from the bloodstream to make more. That lowers circulating LDL. It also increases demand for cholesterol from tissues, including plaques. This is how food physically pulls cholesterol out of your body. Finally, there is a mineral anchor. Seeds, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, flax. They provide magnesium and vitamin K precursors. These guide calcium away from arteries and back into bone where it belongs. They prevent the slow transformation of living vessels into rigid pipes. This plate does not feel like medicine, it feels like a meal. But inside your arteries, something extraordinary happens. Blood sugar rises slowly, insulin stays controlled. Endothelial cells release nitric oxide, LDL particles remain stable, HDL begins collecting cholesterol, foam cells activate their transporters, inflammation quiets, the fibrous cap thickens, calcium deposition slows. This is not symbolism, this is cellular behavior, and the change begins after the first meal, not months later, not years later. Within hours, endothelial function improves. Within days, inflammatory markers shift. Within weeks, HDL functionality rises. Over time, plaque volume can shrink. This has been measured, not in theory, in humans. People who adopt this pattern show regression of atherosclerotic lesions. Their arteries become more flexible. Their risk of rupture drops. Their bodies stop behaving as if every meal is a threat. The tragedy is that most people never experience this because they think food is powerless. They believe only drugs and procedures matter. So they eat in ways that constantly inflame their vessels and then rely on medication to fight biology that never rests. This meal flips that relationship. It turns every bite into a signal of safety. It tells your immune system to stand down. It tells your arteries to relax. It tells foam cells to unload their cargo. It tells your liver to clear what no longer belongs. And it does this without extremes. No starvation, no obsession, no counting. Just a plate built with intention. In the final part, I'll show you how to use this in real life, how often to eat it, how to adapt it, what mistakes sabotage the process, and how to know your arteries are actually changing even before a scan ever shows it. This is not something you eat once and forget. This is a pattern you return to. You don't need perfection. You don't need every meal to look like this. Biology responds to trends, not moments. What matters is that this plate becomes familiar, something your body sees again and again, a signal that repeats often enough to change behavior at the cellular level. For most people, once a day is enough to start the shift. One meal that calms inflammation instead of provoking it. One meal that stabilizes blood sugar instead of spiking it. One meal that tells your arteries they are safe. Over time, that signal compounds. Your endothelial cells begin to behave differently. They produce more nitric oxide. Your blood becomes less sticky. Platelets calm down. HDL becomes more effective. Foam cells stop swelling and start shrinking. And something important happens psychologically. You stop feeling fragile. Most people with heart disease live in quiet fear. Every chest sensation feels ominous. Every doctor visit feels like judgment. Food becomes either enemy or comfort, never ally. This changes that. When you understand what's happening inside your body, food stops being abstract. It becomes communication. You are no longer guessing. You are participating. There are mistakes that can sabotage this. The first is pairing this meal with constant sugar, drinking sweet beverages, snacking on refined carbohydrates, ending the day with dessert. These undo the endothelial benefits and keep oxidative stress high. The second is fear of fat, using a few drops of oil, avoiding nuts, skipping fish. Without enough fat, HDL cannot function properly. Reverse transport slows. Foam cells remain trapped. The third is inconsistency, eating this way for a week, then abandoning it. Biology doesn't respond to short bursts. It responds to environment. You are building an internal climate. Give it time. Another mistake is waiting for permission from a scan. Many people say, "I'll start when my calcium score goes up," or "I'll change when my doctor tells me to." By then, years of silent damage have passed. You don't wait for a roof to collapse before fixing a leak. The earliest changes are invisible on imaging. They happen in function, not structure. Blood pressure becomes easier to control. Energy returns. Inflammation markers drop. Vessels respond better to movement. Circulation improves. These are signs of living arteries. Over time, structure follows function. Plaque becomes more stable. Some of it regresses. Calcium progression slows. Risk shifts. Not because you fought your body, because you aligned with it. This is what most people were never taught. Your body is not broken. It is responding to signals. For years, it has been hearing danger, sugar spikes, oxidized fats, chronic stress, inflammatory meals. It has been trying to protect you by walling off injury. This meal tells a different story. It says there is no fire, there is no invasion, there is no emergency. So the immune system relaxes, the arteries soften, the repair systems wake up, and something subtle but profound happens. You stop aging in fast forward. Your vessels behave less like brittle pipes and more like living tissue. Your heart pumps against less resistance. Your brain receives steadier flow. Your legs feel warmer. Your hands feel less numb. Stairs feel less threatening. This is what reversal looks like. Not a dramatic headline, not a miracle moment, a quiet return to resilience. And it begins with one plate.